Hey there, internets. This is Kyle. How's it going? We're here back on the My Business Launch Secrets YouTube channel for edition number day 60, I think. 60, 59 or 60. No, 60. This is day 60. At least in my sequence of videos, not quite day 60 since I started this journey with you all, going from zero to $1 million and starting a new online business, doing it part-time because I still got a day job and bills to pay and a family to take care of, including that sweet, sweet dog over there that's just, sitting because he's so damn tired from doing jack shit all day. So that's what this channel is all about, documenting that journey, online business. See some sweet shirts up there, some designs I was testing out. Talked about those a while back. For some swag for the business. The business is PhD Boss. Initially just going to be a print newsletter to PhDs worldwide. I guess primarily focused audience around engineers and scientists and tech folks, since that's my own personal background, but any PhD can pick it up. Maybe they'll find it useful. So the business is selling a monthly print newsletter, basically, to start with. $47 a month. And figure, hey, if I could get 1,000 people to buy this newsletter, that's 47 grand a month. That's pretty sweet sweet pocket change to have. Pay some of the bills and whatnot, and quit my job, which is something I would like to do eventually. I am 40 years old this year. And I would say this whole entrepreneurial journey for me started, maybe a little over a year ago now. Maybe closer to 2 years now, I guess, potentially. Just kind of thinking of this idea, and I just bring up my age to give you some sense that, yeah, sure, maybe this is some midlife crisis thing going on or whatever, but I think... at least for me, I've reached a point in my own career that I wouldn't say bored with it, but just not getting a lot of fulfillment personally or professionally or whatever, and not sure, thinking about just taking a different job, doing something slightly different. I just kind of think like, okay, if I could just pick any job, like of any job working for somebody doing whatever I want to do, like what would that be? And at the end of the day, with the stipulation, I should say, of still like working in the same field that I already work in and doing something related to my experience that I have to date. And with those constraints on that question, I find I don't come up with a good answer. And so thus that warrants the need to kind of step out of what I've been doing for the past 15 years predominantly, but let's just take it all the way back, some 20-some years back to when I was still in college, to get me that put me on the trajectory that I'm on currently. And I'd have to step away from that, at least in some respect, in some way, to do something that I at least could become a little bit more motivated by, I guess. And that's obviously tough to do. And while there are certainly entirely different lines of work that I have considered doing, from going into accounting because I like numbers, and finance because I like personal finance, and investing. I wouldn't say I'm investment expert, but I just like that field in general, I guess. Or something entirely different from that, something like home repair business, handyman business, just given the complete lack of decent businesses in that type of area. The trades severely lacking in our country, broadly speaking, and even in where I'm at locally, I think there's a lot of opportunity potentially. But I look at any of those types of businesses, and number one, if it was like, oh, well, let me just go try to find a job doing one of those things. Well, I mean, nobody's going to hire me to do that because, like, I don't have any legit professional experience doing those. I'd just be like, oh, yeah, I've kind of been learning this thing on the side. I've been learning to be a handyman on the side. I work on my own house. Would you give me a job? Pay me lots of money to work for your business? Well, I mean, they might give me a job because I would actually show up, but they're not going to pay me lots of money. The same goes for any of those fields I mentioned. And so that then leads me to think, well, okay, if I'm not going to be able to get somebody else to give me a job paying a relatively high salary to keep me comparable to what I'm making currently in a career that I've, again, been working in for the past 15 years, let's say, then what do I do? Well, then it's like, okay, well, if I start my business, then potentially I can build that up to only, there's no limit, there's no cap on what I could do. Then the question comes, well, in any of those business models that I just mentioned, doing accounting or doing, well, let's talk about that accounting. So if you want to be an accountant, of course, there are certain professional requirements that are required. Getting a CPA, which requires a degree, which requires like X number of years of doing the thing. So obviously I'm not going to do that because that would take years, and I'm not going to go back to school part-time to learn that for the next 6 or 7 years to get some dumb degree that then I'd be able to get a job making like 40 or 50K doing. Like, that would be stupid. You can do bookkeeping for businesses without any specific certification, and that is something I definitely spent a little more time investigating. But even in that, the problem there, as is the problem with several of these business models, is that you're ultimately still capped by the amount of time that you're putting into the business. If I'm a bookkeeper for other small businesses, let's say, I can only take on so many of those small businesses myself to offer to do their books. And even if I did some fancy marketing and came up with a sweet offer to get them pay me kind of a premium rate, I mean, that's still, I don't know, you're only talking like maybe $100 an hour, like max kind of thing. And that would be on like the super high end. And it's still you're just capped by some hourly rate. Of course, many of you would say, "Oh, $100 an hour, that's like, that would be amazing." So, but, and that is a good number. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want, for me, it's always I don't know what the proper word is, but it's always a look at the risk of any decision that you're making. And if there's not a significant upside to whatever the risk that you're taking on, then I say, why bother with that risk if there's not a significant upside? So again, going down that route where, again, I'm just trading my time for money still, it's just, I'm my own boss. I'm responsible for getting the business and then doing the work. It's still me spending my time doing the thing. And again, yes, you could say, oh, you could hire people to start doing the work and then you become yeah, I get that. But that is not something I would be comfortable doing like right away. I mean, that would be kind of stupid for me to say, I'm going to start a new bookkeeping business, which I have zero experience with it, and to start with, I'm going to somehow generate significant business. I'm going to be able to convince a ton of people that they should give me their books to, again, to a guy that has no actual experience doing this yet, even if I have done some training or whatever I claim to have done. Give me all your business, and then, but I'm not actually going to do your books. I'm just going to go hire some cheap labor overseas to actually do your books, and I'll just kind of manage and keep tabs, make sure everything's kosher or whatever. Like, that doesn't seem like a legit way to do things, at least starting out. I mean, again, I would still feel like I probably got to do this like 2, 3, 4, 5 years on my own, get all my own processes down, how I like to do things with the customers and what their expectations are, and then be comfortable to like, okay, now let me hire somebody else so I can start to, take on more clients and that sort of thing. and again, that's something where it's not ever anything that's like, oh, over time I could be charging more money to clients, because I mean, bookkeeping, accounting type stuff is not something that, unless you're getting to like tax planning, it's not something that's really saving a business money. I mean, you could argue it's saving money because proper accounting is necessary. They could really screw themselves over if they don't do it correctly, but people don't really think about that. They only think about what's, how is this impacting my bottom line? Or is it increasing my top line? So that's kind of the pros and cons there. You can think about the handyman business or any sort of trade. Well, number one, trades themselves, again, also require a lot of training, schooling, some sort of mentorship, apprenticeship type thing, where, again, you have to spend literally years doing that kind of work at a relatively low wage before you could actually then be able to go out and do it on your own. And that's, again, not something I'm not willing to, at 40 years old, I'm not willing to sacrifice, 2, 3, 4 years of my life to go through that whole process, making, again, 40, 50K a year to learn that before I could even go and start my business and try to get my own customers, etc. So that's not great. So then you think about doing things that don't require those types of certifications or licenses, etc. And that's where you get into thinking about like handyman type businesses, or I mean, I've heard people talk about like doing home automation type stuff. And handyman just meaning you can kind of do any generic type of work around a house that doesn't involve electrical, plumbing, HVAC. I guess those are the main ones, right? So if you're talking about, I don't know, if you wanted to replace windows on houses, like that doesn't require a license, I don't think. And if you wanted to just, I don't know, say you're going to assemble people's furniture, they buy bookcases from IKEA or whatever, you're going to be the guy that goes over and assembles it. That's cool. You could do that. You could do wall repairs, right? Any sheetrock kind of work. You could become a painter. I mean, you don't have to be certified or anything to become a painter either. That's something, but I really don't like painting that much, so I really wouldn't want to do that. But again, handyman thing is kind of interesting. You could think about, again, home automation, doing low voltage wiring, such as wiring for internet or cable. I don't think there's any stipulations that require you to have a license for doing that type of thing either. So you could set up a business just doing that. And some of those ideas are interesting, and certainly ones I have thought about, done a little more research on. But again, in that situation, still running the same problem of you're still trading your money for time until you can hire more people. And again, given the fact that I'd be going into that field because I think it's a ripe opportunity, because there's such a limited people out there doing it, which also thereby means there's limited number of potential employees that you could go out and find to work for you, at least good quality ones. So I think that would be certainly be a significant challenge in the longer term for that type of a business. Secondly, that is a labor intensive business. And again, I am 40 years old now, even though I might look like 25 or something, but I am getting up there, and my back has been jacked just this week. And I was just thinking, like, man, if I had some sort of a manual labor type of job, I would be totally screwed, because I would be like basically unable to work for this entire past week and potentially this coming week, because I'm getting better, but I'm not healed up for sure entirely. So that's just going to take time. And so I'm, again, very lucky in many ways that I have just a typical office desk job that even I can work from home if I need to. So I have a lot of flexibility to do that, even with a jacked up back. So that's the other problem with a trade type of business. Again, I think some of these are great ideas if you're young, new, getting started out. Good things to look into, and good opportunities out there to pursue. So anyway, coming full circle then to what I am trying to do in starting an online business, is basically getting into the whole kind of coaching game, more or less, which obviously there's tons of that these days, and gurus and all these types of folks out there selling all sorts of stuff. And talked about that yesterday a little bit in terms of the people like to talk about a lot of those folks being more scammy type people. But that's more speaking to the ones that are, kind of pitching these, what sound like kind of get rich quick kind of schemes. But that's not really what I'm about. Again, my business will be more focused on giving kind of tailored career guidance, advice, etc. to people with PhDs, which I view as being somewhat lacking in the overall marketplace. Not to say there's not people doing it, and certainly I recognize like a lot of PhDs do get support in other ways, whether that's from their universities when they're still in school, or maybe from their employers wherever they're currently working. There's professional associations that you can be a part of, which put out a lot of that type of similar type of content. But I'm trying to do something that's a little bit different, I guess you could say, than anything that's really out there today. At least that I know of, and I've been a PhD for 10 years now. So I would think that if something was out there that was super mega popular, I would probably have at least heard of it. Not that I would have ever signed up for such a thing, but at least would probably be aware of it. And even like some of those things I mentioned, like there's a bunch of professional associations you can join, and they're not just for PhDs, just for any professional societies for anybody that's doing that kind of work that I used to be a part of. One in particular, the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, I think. Being an electrical engineer myself, that's the most appropriate one. And I just stopped paying my dues on that, like, I don't know, a few years ago, because I just found it to be a waste of money, because they do have like networking events and things like this, but I'm not big at doing the whole networking thing and trying to meet a bunch of people. I'm not really all about that. And, sure, they would send out email newsletters and crap like that, but I don't really read those, and ended up just unsubscribing from all that anyway. So I was like, why am I paying this $200 or whatever it was a year for this membership when it doesn't really do me anything? There was certainly a period in time where I thought that having that membership sort of looked good on the resume, which I think is debatable. But nevertheless, I'm trying to do something different than that in this business. And although I think at a certain point in time down the road, I will potentially get into some kind of coaching, whether that's like a group coaching thing or even one-on-one type of coaching. I think for now, what I'm just trying to do is see if I can get a paid newsletter up and running off the ground. See if I can even get 100 people. I mean, I was thinking, even if I get 100 people sign up for this thing, that's $4,700 a month. I mean, that would be a significant impact to my life. I mean, not that wouldn't be money I could just quit my job on or anything, but with increasing expenses with kids for having kids with special needs, which has certainly stressed the finances in different ways. Again, $4,700. Even if I'm only taking home like whatever half of that after I have expenses, and maybe start paying somebody to help me out with publishing that thing or something, but that would still be a significant thing in my opinion, even just having 100 people. And then if I could get that 100 people, if I could convert, half of them to sort of the next tier of membership, which would, I guess, start to get into more of a group coaching type of thing. And then maybe that tier would be like $150 a month. Well, so now you add that on top of the $47 a month for the base membership. then, you're just adding to those numbers. I'm not doing that as quickly in my head as I would like to, but that's fine. And then if I could get some percentage, some fraction of those 50 that chose to go to the next step, if I get 10 of those that are motivated enough to want to get more like one-on-one types of guidance, where I'm now charging thousands of dollars per student or client, customer, whatever, in those situations, then, and that might be like thousands of bucks for a year or something, or 6 months or whatever, then, you can definitely see how even having a relatively small business in terms of number of customers can still become a very profitable endeavor, and that's why a lot of people are doing all this online course making and coaching and all that sort of stuff, because it's if you can get the marketing right and the message right, find the right audience, then making a pretty good amount of money is not really that hard. Now, I'm not saying getting all those pieces set in place is not. I'm not saying those are easy. Those are hard, but once you figure out those sort of the right levers to pull and getting them put in the right place, then sort of on the back end, once you start getting people aware of your message and getting people interested, and you have the right offer, then you can start to see, once you get some good flow going, that the dollars start to add up pretty quick. So again, that's just where I'm at. This was, I guess, somewhat of a bit of a recap for myself and others in terms of the direction I'm headed, at least currently. Subject to change, probably will change. Only 2 months into this whole gig, and still working on a sales funnel that I need to finish out, and then start building up some organic content to start to drive traffic is the plan. Try to avoid paid advertisements for at least a little while, because I just don't have tons of money to start dumping into ads, which, as I've heard, are getting more and more difficult to convert. So that's just where I'm at. Anyway, hope you're all doing well. Keep on kicking ass, taking names. I'll see you next time. Peace.